Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, December 7, 2021.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered reading the journal from the previous day.
So ordered. Petition, memorials, and other papers. Message to the Senate. The clerk will read the message.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we propose with your concurrence a modified joint session of the General Assembly in our respective chambers due to the pandemic at 5 p.m. on December 9, 2021 for the election of the Treasurer of the State of Maryland by joint ballot in accordance with Article 6, Section 1 and 5 of the Constitution. We respectfully request the presence of the President, Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and Secretary of the Senate with the Senate ballots in the House chamber to witness the counting of the ballots. By order, Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
Hearing no objection, the message is adopted. Message from the Senate. The clerk will read the message.
Ladies and gentlemen, the House of Delegates, we have received your message proposing a modified joint session of the General Assembly in our respective chambers due to COVID-19 pandemic at 5 p.m. December 9, 2021 for the purpose of the election of the Treasurer of the State of Maryland by joint ballot in accordance with Article 6, Sections 1 and 5 of the Constitution. We respectfully concur in your message and have appointed on the behalf of the Senate the President, President Pro Tem, Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and Secretary of the Senate with the Senate ballots to witness the counting of the ballots.
Hearing no objection, the message is ordered, journalized. Vetoed House Bill Calendar Number 3. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1, Congressional Districting Plan.
Question for the House is, shall the bill pass without the objections of the Chief Executive?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, we're all here this week. We saw it on the calendar for a while. In many ways, and I would say in the minority party, we expected a fairly scripted outcome. We were going to show up. We were going to hear two bills. One bill was going to be disregarded as not independent, but rather, as we heard on the House floor, a Republican map. Of course, I would ask, did we put a Republican map in as a caucus? No, we did not. Did MDGOP or any other Republican put a map in? Of course not. What the governor did, to the extent practical, is create a commission that allowed as independent a process to occur for the benefit of citizens across the state of Maryland. Did it because polling shows people want independent districts to be drawn. And so what's interesting, as many of us probably got interviewed last week, I was sitting through an interview and they were asking, Chris, what do you expect to happen during session next week? And I explained to them the idea behind what happens here. We are a 2-to-1 disadvantage. And as I was furthering it, the person who interviewed me said, well, don't you think it's possible that through this process there will be some reconciliation, that there will be some conflict that requires resolution, and for the purpose of our conversation, we create a win-win? And really, at the end of the day, as I think about it as a business owner, we're about win-wins all the time, because win-wins ultimately keep me out of court. When I have a conflict with an employee, what am I trying to do? Resolve the conflict. If I'm dealing with an issue with a competitor or if a different business, a customer, what am I trying to do as a business person? Avoid court at every expense. To the minority leader, I would argue that while you and I are friends, I would only use you at the last resort. But yet, here we are in the Maryland General Assembly, where every opportunity, because we are by definition in here to resolve conflict, to create the best outcome possible. And so I said in that interview, well, how about if I just take a step back? I'm newly elected as a minority whip in the House of Delegates. Maybe I shouldn't just automatically assume that things that I have seen happen in the past 7 years will actually happen this way, because it's possible that the majority party is going to say, maybe we shouldn't have this go to a court. Maybe we should have the maximum degree of influence on what this map looks like, what the outcome looks like. And so if that happens, if that were to happen, what do you think the citizens of Maryland would say? They'd be excited. I think they'd be pleased. I think they would rest easy knowing that we worked together to resolve a solution. Yet, here we sit here today where we knew we were going to be. The governor vetoes the bill. We would likely override that shortly. The Senate will follow. And almost surely, it will be handed to a judge to decide for us. And I believe that that is a failure. That is a failure in the process. I believe it was scripted to receive this outcome, but I don't think in my heart that the legislature wanted this to go that way. I'll say to you that then Governor Martin O'Malley certainly subpoenaed and had to answer questions about the 2010 process, for which we should have all have learned what not to repeat. And so I'm going to read just 2 quotes, because while I'm not from Baltimore City, certainly Martin O'Malley was a mayor of Baltimore City, certainly a governor for the state of Maryland. Because these 2 quotes, I think, resonate with where we sit here today. When we take this vote shortly and we go to the same place we've already been, think about what Martin O'Malley was having to say at the time under subpoena, to the best of his ability, speaking truthfully about the process. First quote, well, I think it's fair to say that as we did the redistricting, that we knew it would impact the 6th. And our hope was, my intention was, that it would impact it in, of all things being equal, a more positive way for our nominee, whoever that might be. The second quote, that's where 7 of the 8 congressional districts are. 6 of them were already Democratic. And so yes, everybody pretty much knew that. As we redrew the lines, it would put more Democrats and independents into the 6th district, and hopefully in the course of the campaign, I hoped, as a Democrat, that that would mean the election of another Democrat. So the minority party today is going to make arguments. Some of us are going to be angry, and some of us are going to be frustrated. Let me just say to you, my reaction to watching this process play out is one of, I am disappointed. I am disappointed because we've been here before. We did not learn the lessons from 10 years ago, and we yet again will find ourselves in front of a judge, someone else making the final decision as to what this map looks like, and it did not have to be this way. Many of us have gone to different conventions over the summer. I've had the first blush opportunity to meet many legislators throughout the country, listen to what they've had to say. I've seen all the polling about what people in this country expect out of elected leaders. And what they expect is us to work together. Not only the pretense of working together, but actually make it look and feel and expect people to see us working toward a common solution. Is that Maryland has to act this way because Texas is acting that way? No, it's because we are one country working together toward a solution. And every year that we do this process where we create gerrymandered districts, what it means is Washington remains and continues to be broken. Because in these districts that are so widely Republican, so widely Democrat, when they go to Washington, what would we expect? We would expect gridlock. We would expect opposites, no reconciliation, and it starts in these state legislatures. It starts right here and right now. And so, Madam Speaker, I would simply say to you this, that the outcome of this veto today puts the legislature in a difficult spot because we want the very best for our citizens, and passing it to a judge is not the way forward. Madam Speaker, I would support the governor's veto and ask the legislature to do the same.
Madam Speaker.
Yes. The gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I stand in support of the governor's veto and in opposition of this map. On Tuesday, we had a lively debate, went back and forth, a lot of ideas were exchanged. I chose at that time not to stand for one reason, because I'm charged with the same responsibility that everybody in here is charged with, and if you're like me, you struggle with it sometimes, and that is to listen. You know, there's an old adage that said God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth, because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. I'm guilty of breaking that all the time, and I know there's others in here that are. But I did listen, because you know why I listened? I have great respect and appreciation for the diversity of thought, of what other people believe. I want to know what your life experiences are. I want to know what your belief system is on why you believe this map is fair and good for the citizens of Maryland. And that goes for everybody in this chamber. Whether it be from my colleague who came in with me from Montgomery County, who seems to bother your side more than me when he stands up to speak. It goes for the majority leader, who I know when he stands up and defends this map, it is evident. He was probably one incredible educator. He knows how to captivate an audience. He knows how to frame an argument. It goes for my colleague from Charles County, who can no doubt argue both sides of an issue convincingly. And I mean that seriously. But I learn when they speak. And to the aforementioned delegate from Charles County, what did he speak about? He spoke about facts and not feelings. Well, that's precious, because I wish we did it a little more, but the truth of the matter is, it's never the truth. And it's certainly not the truth when we look at this map, because it is oozing with one feeling, and it's the same feeling that has driven almost every bill that we've voted on for the last 2 years, and that feeling is fear. It is fear. This map, when I looked at it, said one thing to me. It fears the opposition's voice. Let's be honest in here. We have a House of Delegates that is dominated by one party, the Democrat Party. We have a Senate dominated by the Democrat Party. We have 2 U.S. senators, Democrats. We have 7 of 8 Democrat congressmen. We have one lone guy. But yet we have 1 in 3 Maryland citizens that are in the Republican Party or not in the Democrat Party. And what does this map do? It's got the goal of shutting down that one voice, because nobody wants to hear the opposition's take on things. Where I told you it's precious. It is sewn into the fabric of this country, and it is important to the Republic in this state that we have a diverse arena of ideas. And this map does nothing but seek to destroy that. We talked about communities and community blocks. Well, I appreciate that, but where I'm from, I can hit a pitching wedge to the line that goes right down the middle of 2 yellow lines through 4 communities, Whitehurst, Oakley Forest, Fair Oaks, North Cape Arthur, dividing that neighborhood. It's not about communities. This is about voting blocks. Let's be honest. It's about putting voting blocks in so that we have complete power on one side. If you think one party rule is a good idea, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize to my friends from Baltimore City, I do think you're labeled incorrectly sometimes. You are a great city. You are diverse. You bring many different cultural backgrounds, a rich history, but you know what you're not diverse in? You're not diverse in politics. There hasn't been a Republican in Baltimore City since the 50s. And I say that because you know what I've seen with the census? Let's be honest about the census. People are fleeing the city. You know where they're going? They're going to Anne Arundel County. I can tell you that. We're now the 4th largest county in the state, one of the richest counties in the country. And what did the Hogan administration do? They gave a bipartisan group the task of drawing a map that engaged with the citizens, that had input. I'll be honest with you, sometimes I don't trust when government does studies, or goes out and tasks them to do things. But you know what? They did a heck of a job. They engaged with hundreds of thousands of Maryland citizens. And that map would have, for the first time, given us that are sitting in Anne Arundel County the possibility of having an Anne Arundel County congressman. But no, we didn't do that. We believe in complete power in this body for some reason. We don't like that diversity of thought. We want it all. And we see what the results are in some areas where there's not a diversity of political thought and the idea of having different thought processes coming to making a decision. We have a little bit of it in here, but we're dominated. And that's what this map seeks to do. This is a power grab. This is about shutting down the voice of anybody that's in opposition of the majority party. We got one man left. And 35% of the people in this state are depending on that one man, and possibly a second, if that was ever a possibility, to stand up for them and fight for the freedom to put their voice and their thoughts forward. Madam Speaker, colleagues, you vote for this map. It is about one party rule and one party rule only, and that's what you're going to get. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate?
Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I prepared some comments so I wouldn't ramble, so please bear with me. This is in support of sustaining the governor's veto. Congressional redistricting is every 10 years. Do you really think that the public understands the importance, significance, and power that one party drawing the lines has to shape the direction of the state and federal policy for a decade? Unfortunately, probably not. Civics has been all but obliterated from serious consideration in middle and high school. You would think that with all of the video applications, the middle schoolers and high schoolers would enjoy working various options for redistricting plans in Maryland. It would allow them to get a good geography, history, political, and cultural lessons about Maryland's past, present, and future. Well, we are going to override the governor's veto of the legislative redistricting plan, which is F-rated by the Princeton Gerrymandering Project. Many times, just because you have the power to do something does not make it right. An example, George Washington could have become king after defeating the greatest military at the time. Right here in this old Senate chambers, he resigned his commission and went back to Mount Vernon. At Appomattox, Virginia, General Ulysses Grant accepted General Lee's surrender, but made sure that the defeated Confederate soldiers returned home with their rifles and horses. He could have left them with nothing, but he knew that the country needed to be reunited. So now, we are going to make sure that Maryland will have no minority political representation in Congress. Historically, there were 4 in 1990, 2 in 2002, and 1 in 2012. And now with this veto override, there will be none. This map is a mockery to allow for the diversity of philosophy, thought, and opinion. Groupthink does not make good policy. Please support the Governor Hogan's veto of this terrible tragedy. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Be perfectly honest, wasn't really ready to get up on this. I did vote against the bill originally. I did support the map that was offered by the Independent Commission. If you remember a few weeks ago, the LRAC came around to different jurisdictions. They did stop in Cecil County, and there was a scenario map 3 that would have taken Cecil County out of the Eastern Shore. Now, I don't know who came up with that or why, but that was pretty offensive to our citizens. And there were a number of folks that testified against that map in particular. Not all of them that I agreed with, but the underlying principle I did, is that Cecil County should be left with the Eastern Shore. Regardless of which way the vote turns out, we've been together for a long time, and Cecil's definitely identifies more with Ken and all those than they do even with Hartford. So I was happy about that, and I really do think that the LRAC Commission listened to those citizens and said, hey, that map 3, that's a non-starter. We're going to go a different direction. However, the bill that we're voting on today is more than just Cecil County. And I, as a legislator, and my colleagues here, we have to vote on what's best for the entire state. So even though my district might have been spared, others weren't. Others are chopped into 3 or 4 districts. We've heard a tremendous amount of talk about the process, and it has been an interesting process to follow. I have to admit, I've been incredibly curious this entire time because I wasn't here 10 years ago. And even though the process is important, what's really important is that end goal, that end result. And ultimately, that's what's going to be memorialized. That's what folks are going to look back on. And if we look back to 10 years ago, we had what I think is a flawed process. We had a process that went to courts, that we had folks admit that was done for political reasons. And we haven't ventured too far from that same process that happened 10 years ago. This body had an option to vote on another map that was offered by an independent commission. And that map, by no means, was perfect. But for the citizens of Maryland, it was better than the map that we're voting on today. It reflected communities, it was compact, it was easily recognizable by anyone. It was the more egalitarian model. And I'm upset that we didn't vote for that map, because it was better. You know, I'd like to use an anecdotal here, because another one of the reasons that came up during the debate was that there's other states, and that this is a problem that's Democrat, that's Republican, that's why should we do the right thing when other states aren't? And ultimately, what matters in Congress is the aggregate of your party versus my party. Well, none of you in this body knew me when I was a small child, and that's probably a good thing. But boy, I was always in trouble. I was either writing sentences because I talked too much at school, or picking on my little sister. And my mom would come to me and say, Kevin, knock that off. You're gonna get a whooping. You can't do that stuff. And I'd use every reason, right? I'd say to her, Mom, she started it. She's doing all this stuff and getting away with it. I should be allowed to do that. Or, she's doing the same thing I'm doing. Why aren't you yelling at her? Well, my mom explained to me that I need to do the right thing. That doesn't matter what my sister did, even though she's younger than me and I should know better. And that's stuck with me, and I think that's stuck with everybody else. It's hard to make an argument that the reason that we should keep doing the wrong thing is because somebody over in Texas or Pennsylvania or North Carolina is doing the wrong thing. I've heard that we could punt this to the feds. I don't know about you, but I don't want federal government solving anything at this level, especially when it comes to voting in districts. And frankly, we have the power right now to do the right thing. That's vested in us. That's written in our Constitution. But we're choosing not to because of somebody over there, or because we're waiting on the Fed to rescue us. Well, even as a child, I was able to understand what my mom was saying. And what I also wanted to point out to you is that the voters understand that too. And that's why I'll be voting with the governor on his veto, because we can do better. If it's not this map and it's not the independent map, we can do better. And all of the excuses that we heard, I don't think they land. And I'm going to surmise about how this vote's going to turn out. But I'm asking if you could join me and vote with the governor to sustain the veto. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any, the gentleman from Carroll?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not going to talk today about the Snicker test, even though I still contend this map won't pass the Snicker test. But I read something very telling, I think, in the Baltimore Sun just today. It was something that was uttered over there in the lofty air of the Senate by a majority party senator from Prince George's County. And he said, quote, "You can't separate what's happening outside of Maryland from what we do," end quote. In other words, I think what he was saying is that two wrongs make a right. And I found that remark to be very telling. It demonstrates to me that a lot of the comments that we heard regarding the fairness of this map that we have before us today were really just so many sanctimonious platitudes, and it's sad. You know, the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating voter suppression in Texas. Let's be frank. Gerrymandering is another form of voter suppression, and certainly is a form of disenfranchisement. Maybe they'll get around to investigating us next, but I won't hold my breath on that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentlelady from Hagerstown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to my colleagues. It's great to see everyone if I haven't spoken to you. Hello. All right, so I want to share a little known fact about myself. I'm not sure if many of you know, but I hail from the great state of North Carolina, born and raised. I moved to Maryland looking for bigger opportunities and more money with my brand new bachelor's degree. So I moved here, and to date, I've lived in quite a few counties since being in Maryland. So I'm going to share that with you quickly. I've lived in Anne Arundel County, Severna Park, as a matter of fact. I was there for a couple of years. I moved to Prince George's County, Upper Marlboro, loved that area. I moved there with my brother, stayed in his basement for a while till I found myself a better job. Then I found a job and moved to Montgomery County, Silver Spring. Loved the area. A lot of traffic I didn't like, but I loved the area. Then I moved to Germantown. I was in Germantown, Maryland for 10 years, bought my first home there. Paid $97,000 for it. Me by myself, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, nice townhouse. Sold it for a good amount of money too. In 2006, met my husband, had a daughter. Let's move to Washington County. I'm like, that's far, that's in the country. Well, that's what I'm used to. We moved to Hagerstown, Maryland in 2006. Been there since 2006, 15 years now. So between Montgomery County and Washington County, I've been in those two counties the longest since I've been in Maryland. And I must say that the one I enjoy the most is Washington County. I enjoy Washington County. The living is slow and easy, kind of the way I grew up back home, Rayford, North Carolina. Now, I have to say, when I'm looking at the map for District 6, which is where I'm located, and there are some other counties that are a part of District 6, Garrett County, Allegheny County, of course, Washington County, and big old Montgomery County. I looked at some numbers and I did some comparison, and I want to share a little information with you that you probably already know, but please oblige me. Garrett County, I pulled a few cities and looked at the median income of families there. Pulled a few cities. Oakland, median income is $38,438. Another city, Grantsville, $35,500. Another city, Accident. You guys probably never heard of that. $57,500 is the median income. Let's move on to Allegheny County. Cumberland, Frostburg, $36,145. $42,699 respectively. Let's move on to my county. Hagerstown, median income in Hagerstown, $40,800. Boonesboro, $75,769. Williamsport, $37,147. Now, let's move to Montgomery County. Rockville, Germantown, and Gaithersburg, respectively. Rockville, $100,677. It's the median income. Gaithersburg, $104,567. Germantown, $100,064 is the median income. The disparity between Allegheny County, Washington County, Garrett County, and Montgomery County is disparaging. When I think about people who live in Allegheny County or in my own county of Washington County and compare that to the values, beliefs, median income of people who live in Rockville or Germantown, it's significantly different. I've lived in both of these counties, Montgomery County and now Washington County. There are not a lot of similarities or things that we share in values. It's very different. So I encourage you to think about those numbers that I proposed to you, that I spoke to you. We are very different. Our value systems in the furthest western part of our state are significantly different than Montgomery County. I know there's no perfect map. Not everyone is going to be happy with the map that we'll be using. But the map that we have before us is just not good enough. So I support the governor's veto, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? The gentleman from Kent.
Queen Anne, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. You know what? I've heard all the talk about why we shouldn't do it and a lot of things, but something brings me back to when I was a kid, and my dad told me a great thing. He said, you can win any game you play as long as you set the rules. And I think that's what's happened here with the LRAC. I think every person in this body would agree that had the roles on the LRAC been exactly opposite, we would be having a different discussion right now. And I think fairness is something we do need to talk about, even in Maryland. Yesterday, some points were brought up about the Bay Bridge. Well, I live in Queen Anne's County, and the Bay Bridge is the bane of my existence. I have probably between anywhere from 60 to 80% of the people in my county actually come across that bridge, and I don't have one single email telling me, gee, I like the LRAC maps. They're the ones I get to go to. But I think if you all want to sit down and have a friendly discussion and fair discussion, I'm not 100% excited about Governor Hogan's maps, but they were fair. I would change some things. But when you look at these maps, I don't think anybody can really sit down and tell me this is the way I want to run this state. This is the fair way to run this state, and it's a fair way to get representation. one-party rule in anything is bad. When somebody's in charge, they take advantage of that, and that's when we all suffer. So I'm gonna work with the governor on this one, and I'm gonna vote against this override.
Any further debate? Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There have been great points made today by my colleagues, and I realize that most of you have already made your decision or how you're going to vote on this bill. But I stand here before you today on behalf of my constituents that I promised that I will fight for them to make sure they get true, fair representation. I know you promised your constituent the same thing, and the right thing to do today is not to ignore the will of the people and the work that went into drawing the maps by the Citizens Commission. The right thing to do is not to disenfranchise millions of Marylanders because of political gains. You know, we heard on the floor earlier that, and by many of my colleagues, that well, Texas and other states do it, the Republicans do it to Democrats and other states, so, you know, we'll keep doing it here because they're doing it there. And this is petty and it's wrong. And we as Marylanders, we always lead by example. And this is our chance to lead by example. Frankly, I don't care what other states do. I care what Marylanders do, and I care what we need to do for our future, for our kids. And I'm not going to bore you with a long speech because I don't really have one. I wasn't planning on really speaking. But one of the greatest prides of being an American is that I stand on principle even when it doesn't benefit me. Can you say the same? Will you vote accordingly? Do the right thing and uphold the veto. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate?
Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Every poll that I've ever seen comes out, you talk to people, they say they want political balance in the state. Well, we used to have political balance in our state. We used to be represented by 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans in our congressional delegation. And then some smart political figure, probably a consultant, says, hey, do you know what? It takes about $6 million to win an open congressional seat. Might be just easier to draw some lines. Maybe get some state guys to do our bidding for us. So we have a redistricting in 2000, and delegation goes 6-2. We redistrict again in 2010, and the district goes 7-1, with Congressman Andy Harris being our only Republican congressman. And now we're ready to push through a map that looks like in a left-leaning year, maybe 7.5 to a half, maybe. That's what it looks like. This is bad for our state. And the reason why it's bad for our state is, look, our state is dependent on a lot of federal dollars. A lot of federal money rolls into Maryland. And look, it might be good times now while Democrats are in charge of Congress, but come November, our entire state, Republican state control, might be in the minority, which is bad. If you ever have a chance of being the political minority, I pray to God someday you all get an opportunity for that. But it's not good. It's humbling, very humbling. But this is bad for our state. I do want to straighten up a couple things that were said on the floor during the debate of this. I do find it was funny, the political banter about which map or which process was less political. Because when I looked at the governor's process on their maps, bipartisan commission set up, you know, the governor did appoint those people to hold those hearings, but it was neat because I watched the hearings, and not only were the hearings that were public are all televised, but their working sessions were televised. It was like 36 public meetings, and I'm telling you, it looked like a bipartisan commission to me, unless they were like really good actors like Alec Baldwin is. Looked legit to me. You contrast that with the LRAC, which is like, well, we're representatives of the people. But look, I'll tell you, everybody that's in this chamber, everyone's in the chamber across the street here, or across the hallway, is political. My friend from Cecil County mentioned this, you know, The reason why we're going to do this, well, the reason why we need to draw these maps like this is because Republican states do that. Well, I got an email from a citizen here in Maryland that forwarded me an email from a senator across the hallway. And she writes that she supports fair and balanced redistricting in Maryland. Happy to hear that. But then ends the email, until Republican states address gerrymandered districts and protect voting rights for all constituents, Maryland will likely not proceed with an amendment. And my retort to her is, didn't her mom ever tell her 2 wrongs don't make a right? Because I remember in the General Assembly, we had a bill that basically omitted this. And they said, well, we're going to have a nonpartisan commission. We're going to set it up if our neighboring states do this. We voted on it a few years ago. And the funny thing is, you know, just watch the election there in Virginia. They got a lot of exciting stuff going there in Virginia. Removing CRT from their schools, school choice, actual solid policies that would reduce crime. And do you know what else Virginia has? A bipartisan commission. That's where we should be. That's where the fairness is. And, you know, I'm glad the governor vetoed this. Bring on the lawsuit. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very proud to stand here today and stand with the governor on the veto of this map. In 2010, I said that I would do everything that I possibly could in my power to make sure the next redistricting plan come through would be fair and balanced. And I'm so proud that the governor can stand in for the people of the state of Maryland to make sure that these maps will be drawn to represent the people, not the party. And again, I just want to thank you, and I'm not going to give a colorful speech. I just want to say that I am very proud of what the governor has done. And it would be nice that if this body could come together and work together and do what's right for the people, not for their party. That's what true leadership is. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone like to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. There being 96 votes in the affirmative, the veto is overridden.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The button was malfunctioning, and I'm voting no.
Message to the Senate. The clerk will read the message.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates has voted to override the governor's veto of House Bill 1. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration.
Hearing no objection, the message is adopted. We will be coming back around 5. We had to wait on the Senate. Anything else? So that ends the work at the desk for the moment. Quorum call before recess.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 138 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand recessed until Thursday, December 9th at 5 p.m.